This is the story of Dr. James Carter, a dedicated physician working at a small county hospital in rural Georgia. He was only 34 years old, but his heart was big enough to hold the lives of everyone in his community. It was a stormy night. Thunder crashed overhead as rain pounded the hospital windows. The power had already flickered twice that evening. In the emergency department, only 2 doctors were on duty that night: Dr. Carter and a young resident fresh out of medical school. The emergency room had a few routine cases, nothing too serious, and the night seemed like it would pass quietly. Around 3 in the morning, everything changed. A semi-truck hydroplaned on the rain-slicked interstate and collided with a minivan. Inside that van was a family returning home from visiting relatives. The crash was catastrophic. 5 people were critically injured: a father, his wife, their 2 children, and their grandmother. All of them were in life-threatening condition. The ambulance rushed them to the hospital. When Dr. Carter saw them wheeled through those doors, his heart sank. 5 critically injured patients, and only 2 doctors. No specialists on call, no anesthesiologist available. And then, as if fate wanted to make things harder, the power went out completely. The backup generator coughed once and died. The hospital was plunged into darkness, except for the dim glow of battery-powered emergency lights. The only reliable light sources were their cell phone flashlights. Dr. Carter quickly assessed the situation. The father had severe chest trauma, with possible internal bleeding. The mother had a compound leg fracture and was losing blood rapidly. The young son had a traumatic head injury with signs of brain swelling. The daughter showed symptoms of internal bleeding, and the grandmother's breathing was becoming dangerously shallow. Most doctors would have panicked. They would have called for transfers to larger hospitals. But Dr. Carter knew that in this storm, with these injuries, these patients wouldn't survive the transport. If they were going to live, it had to happen here, right now, with whatever resources they had. Dr. Carter didn't hesitate. He gave rapid-fire instructions to the resident. Emergency equipment was gathered. Nurses were called in from other departments, and then began the fight between life and death. Dr. Carter examined the 8-year-old daughter first. Her internal bleeding was severe and getting worse by the minute. She needed emergency surgery immediately, but the operating room had no power. The surgical lights were dead. Dr. Carter made a decision that would define his entire career. He ordered staff members to bring every cell phone in the hospital. Nurses held phones with flashlights pointed at the surgical field. The maintenance team worked frantically to get the generator running, but it remained stubbornly silent. Under the dim glow of cell phone lights, Dr. Carter began the surgery. His hands didn't shake. His focus didn't waver. There was only one goal: save this little girl's life. For 3 hours, he operated in near darkness. The young resident assisted, handing him instruments. Nurses held lights steady despite aching arms. The surgery was successful. The little girl's bleeding was stopped. Her vital signs stabilized. But 3 more patients were still in critical condition. And Dr. Carter's work was far from over. Stepping out of the operating room, Dr. Carter gulped down some water and immediately moved to the father. His condition had deteriorated. His lungs were failing. He needed a ventilator. But the hospital's only ventilator was already in use, with another long-term patient. Dr. Carter made another impossible choice. He began manually ventilating the father, using an bamboo bag. This meant squeezing a bag by hand to push air into the patient's lungs, 16 to 20 times per minute. It's exhausting work, requiring perfect rhythm and constant attention. A single mistake could be fatal. The young resident offered to take over so he could rest. Dr. Carter refused. He knew the stakes. He knew that his experience and judgment were keeping this man alive. So he kept going, squeeze after squeeze, breath after breath, minute after minute, hour after hour. By 5 in the morning, the storm still raged outside. Dr. Carter's arms burned with fatigue. His eyes were heavy with exhaustion, but he didn't stop. Then the grandmother went into cardiac arrest. Her heart stopped beating. She needed immediate CPR. The resident rushed to begin chest compressions while Dr. Carter continued manually ventilating the father. Nurses worked on stabilizing the other patients. The hospital had become a battlefield. A battlefield where the warriors wore scrubs instead of armor, where the weapons were medical instruments, and where the enemy was death itself. And Dr. Carter was the general leading this desperate fight. At 7 in the morning, a miracle happened. The maintenance crew finally got the backup generator running. The lights flickered on. Equipment hummed back to life. The ventilator became available. Dr. Carter transferred the father to the ventilator. Medications stabilized the grandmother's heart rhythm. The mother underwent successful surgery to repair her leg fracture. The young son's head injury was treated and monitored. The daughter remained stable from her earlier surgery. 5 lives hung in the balance, and slowly, steadily, all 5 began to tip toward survival. But Dr. Carter's work wasn't finished. He personally checked each patient again. He coordinated blood transfusions. He adjusted medication dosages. He briefed his team on continued care protocols. He made sure every detail was perfect. By noon, all 5 patients were stable and improving. A family that should have been torn apart by tragedy was still together. Still breathing. Still alive. When everything was finally under control, Dr. Carter walked out to the hospital corridor. He sat down on a bench, his back against the wall, and then, for the first time in 9 hours, he let himself feel it all. Tears ran down his face. They were tears of relief, tears of exhaustion, tears of gratitude that he had been able to make a difference. The young resident sat down beside him. "Dr. Carter," she said softly, "what you did tonight, most doctors couldn't have pulled that off. You're a hero." Dr. Carter shook his head and smiled through his tears. "I'm not a hero. I just did my job. When I took the Hippocratic Oath, I promised to preserve life at all costs. Tonight, I just kept that promise." Days later, when the family regained consciousness and learned how Dr. Carter had saved them all with minimal resources, with no power, with nothing but his skill and determination, they wept. The father tried to thank him, but words seemed inadequate. Dr. Carter simply said, "You gave me the greatest gift a doctor can receive. You gave me the chance to save 5 lives in one night. Thank you for surviving. Thank you for fighting alongside me." The story spread throughout the community, then the state, then nationwide. Media outlets wanted interviews. Medical organizations offered awards, but Dr. Carter declined it all. He didn't want fame. He didn't want recognition. He just wanted to keep doing what he loved, taking care of patients. Today, Dr. Carter still works at that same small county hospital. He still takes the night shifts. He's still the first one to respond to an emergency. Because for him, every patient is a sacred responsibility. Every life is a precious gift. This is what real heroes look like. They don't seek the spotlight. They don't demand recognition. They simply do their job with dedication, skill, and an unshakable commitment to helping others. There are thousands of doctors, like Dr. Carter across America, working in small hospitals and big cities, saving lives without fanfare, making impossible decisions in crisis situations. Take a moment to thank them, because these are the real heroes walking among us. They don't wear capes, they wear stethoscopes, and they save lives every single day. These are the real heroes.